Something unexpected just happened in the smartphone world, and it's not Apple or Samsung fighting for number one. The real surprise is that two underdog brands, Pixel and Nothing, just had one of their strongest quarters ever, while the overall market is actually shrinking. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing you more tech breakdowns like this one. That's what makes this story interesting. Globally, smartphone shipments dropped by about 6% in the first quarter of 2026. That means fewer phones are being sold overall. But despite that slowdown, a few companies didn't just survive, they grew fast. And the reasons behind that growth tell us a lot about where smartphones are heading next. Let's start with the big picture. There's still confusion at the top depending on which data you look at. One report says Samsung is back in first place with 22% market share, while another says Apple actually led Q1 for the first time ever with 21%, slightly ahead of Samsung's 20%. Either way, Apple saw a 5% year-over-year increase thanks to strong demand for the iPhone 17 lineup and aggressive trade-in offers. Samsung, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. Its shipments dropped by 6%, even though its market share stayed roughly the same. And this already tells us something important. The premium segment is holding strong, while the rest of the market is struggling. Now here's where things get interesting. Outside the top 5 brands, Pixel and Nothing quietly had a breakout quarter. Pixel shipments grew by 14% year-over-year. That's a big deal, especially for a brand that's never dominated global numbers. And the main reason? AI. Google is doubling down hard on smart features, and it's starting to pay off. One of the standout features is something called Magic Q. It basically understands what's on your screen and gives you useful information before you even ask for it. It's a shift from reactive assistance to proactive intelligence. And with Gemini AI replacing Google Assistant, Pixel phones are becoming more context-aware than ever. That's not just a spec upgrade, that's a different way of using your phone. And it looks like Google isn't slowing down. The upcoming Pixel 11 is expected to bring a new Tensor G6 chip and possibly a more secure face unlock system. So this AI-first strategy is clearly long-term, not just a one-off feature push. Now let's talk about Nothing, because their growth might be even more surprising. Nothing saw a massive 25% increase in shipments during the same quarter. That's huge, especially for a relatively new brand. And unlike Pixel, their success isn't really about AI, it's about identity. Nothing phones stand out. Transparent designs, unique lighting elements, and a very different aesthetic compared to the usual glass slabs. In a market where most phones look and feel the same, Nothing is doing the opposite, and people are noticing. But design alone isn't enough. What's really helping them is growing brand awareness and smart positioning as a niche alternative. They're not trying to compete directly with Apple or Samsung. They're carving out their own space, and it's working. Also, it's worth remembering that Nothing's CEO, Carl Pei, already built OnePlus into a major brand once. So this isn't luck, it's experience playing out again. Meanwhile, not everyone is doing well. Xiaomi's shipments dropped by a massive 19%, with its market share falling from 14% to 12%. And that highlights another key trend. Budget and mid-range phones are under pressure. Rising component costs, especially for memory like DRAM and NAND, are hitting these brands harder. Oppo and Vivo also saw declines, though not as steep. Oppo dropped 4% and Vivo fell by 2%, even though Vivo slightly increased its market share. So when you zoom out, the pattern becomes clear. Premium phones are holding steady. AI-driven experiences are gaining attention. Unique branding and design can still break through. But the traditional volume-driven strategy, selling cheaper phones in massive numbers, is getting harder to sustain. And this brings us to what's next. 2026 isn't expected to be a huge growth year overall, but there is one category that could change things: foldables. There's a lot of anticipation around a possible foldable iPhone launching later this year. Some analysts believe it could boost foldable shipments by as much as 30%. If Apple enters that space, it could finally push foldables into the mainstream. But even with that, the real shift might not be hardware, it might be software. Because what Pixel is doing with AI and what Nothing is doing with design both point to the same idea. Smartphones are no longer just about specs, they're about experience. So, if you're wondering where the industry is heading, this quarter gives you a pretty clear hint. It's not just about who sells the most phones anymore. It's about who makes their phones feel different and actually useful in new ways. And right now, Pixel and Nothing are doing exactly that. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments section. See you in the next video. Take care.